I got both my kitties with me again today. One's chilling there and the other's running around like a mad thing. Yeah, I know. Django. He's so cute. So before we start today, thank you for all the great support you guys continue to give me. It's fantastic, and I hope I can continue to provide you with content that's actually useful for you. So no matter where you are in your design career, whether you're just starting out or whether you've been doing this thing for 10 years or so, there's always ways you can improve, and I'm hoping this video will show you some ways that you can either change up your thinking or even just get started and inspired. So I have 7, I wouldn't call them tips. Some of them are methods, some of them are ways of thinking, some of them are techniques. I have 7 things that you might want to think about in order to improve your skills as a designer. So let's start with number 1. So when you're first starting out and you've made something that you're proud of and you show other people, there can be some hard words said. Not necessarily that is the worst thing I've ever seen, but more along the lines of, yeah, I don't know, it could be better, and it can hurt. And as a designer, you need to learn how to take creative criticism. As artists, as designers, we need to learn how to differentiate between what is creative feedback and what is some person just being nasty for the sake of being nasty, and to disseminate between that and find somewhere to improve. You might make something you're really, really proud of, and when you hear someone say, actually, it would be better if XYZ, you can take that on board and choose to use it, or you can discard and say, I know what they're getting at, but I think mine works better. But the key point is to be open to it. When I was at university studying design, in my visual design class especially, my tutor used to have us put our work up, no matter what it was, sometimes when it wasn't even finished and we really didn't want to show it. And we were all encouraged to provide feedback. The class was encouraged to find 3 things right with the design and 3 things wrong or could be improved on. So that built our backbones to a point where, we realized that we were all going through the same thing, and our class was just trying to find stuff to make us better. And through that method of all kind of looking critically at each other's work and being able to identify rooms for improvement, it just meant that the next draft was even better than it would have been if we had just carried on our own narrow way of thinking and designed the thing how we envisioned it to be. So I think we need to be open to accepting all of this feedback, and you don't have to take it all in and say, okay, yes. Take in those things that you think will benefit your work and be open to that criticism, because it's not from a nasty place. Sometimes it is. You get trolls online that just, blast your work for no reason. Ignore them, but realize when people are seeing the potential in your work and trying to get you to improve on it. It's always a good thing, and it'll only make you a better designer. Number 2 is practice. Think of your practice sessions as a musician who's just learning is, going over the scales over and over and over again, or just, trying to make a simple melody, or having a jam session. So practice in however you like to practice. So I used to if I saw a piece of design work that I really liked, I would just shamelessly copy it, not to share outside to anybody, but I used to try and see how that designer put that thing together. And the act of trying to replicate the work through color, form, spacing, font even, makes you see things in a different way, see maybe the reasoning behind why it was done that way, and lets you explore tools that maybe you've been ignoring. You've got used to just using a certain set of tools and you didn't really have to mess with those ones to do your thing. But now that you have to do this thing that you've never done before, you're exploring new ways of doing things. So don't even worry about it turning out great. This is a practice session. You should have Illustrator documents that are just a mess of different curves and lines and shapes. Just exploration. Play around with the tool, see what you can do. On to point 3. This is a tip that I really want to try and encourage you to do, is to limit your options. So sometimes if I'm sitting and I know I want to be creative, I don't know what I want to create, what I want to do. I know I want to do something around a certain topic, but I don't know quite how. You're just sitting there and you end up not really doing very much of anything. Because there's too many options. My brain gets too sprazzled into so many directions I could take this thing. So I think a great way is to just cut back on everything. Either limit the time, give yourself like 15, 20 minutes to create something from scratch and see where you are after those 20 minutes are done. Be very strict about it. Or perhaps give yourself a very limited color palette, perhaps just black and one highlight color of red, a single font, and see what you can do with that. And I find the act of restricting myself frees me up and gets me thinking bigger. Ooh, what can I do within these limitations? Whereas when I'm given too many options, there's too many possibilities. So I like to scale down a bit. So give that a try. It might work for you guys as well. Obviously, guys, get inspired. Don't design in a box and have these ideas and try and churn them out, because you're designing in effect in a vacuum. When you're feeling a bit demotivated, or even when you're not, take a little bit of time and just look at beautiful stuff. Follow artists and designers and perhaps even photographers on Instagram and Dribbble and Behance. See what other people are putting out there and just get your brain sponge just soaked in all the beautiful design that's out there, and allow it to inspire your work. I think it's such a great feeling when you've seen some designs that really, really get your creative juices flowing, and you see the possibilities that you can do, and you just want to run into your office and just get started. It's a fantastic feeling, getting inspired. Even the act of looking at different color palettes can get your brain churning, be like, oh, these colors would be awesome for this particular design I've been thinking about. Or look at really old vintage posters and movie posters and old biker patches. There's some awesome, simple, but very, very elegant stuff that you can find. Open yourself up to not just what is currently trendy, but all the realms of design that you can possibly imagine. And let it feed you. Let it just feed your creativity. It can only improve your skills. So this should go without saying. Be open to learning something new. Now, I've been working in Illustrator for about 12 years now, and I'm still learning just weird little odd things within the software itself that I just didn't know existed. And not just the software you're using, but methods and ways to design and things you can do and possibilities. It's easy to think once you get really, really good at a specific thing that you've got nothing more to learn. But even say you have nothing more to learn on that specific thing, learning something new can influence how you do that thing you're really good at even more. Try something new, even if it's not related into design. You'll find a lot of creative pursuits are very interlinked. So when you start getting better as a photographer, that could then translate into your design skills and make you better at seeing composition and lighting and all that good stuff. And it's always great to learn. Never get stagnant. Just try and learn something new as much as you possibly can. And this leads me directly into my next point, which is I came across a recent quote, and it's really annoying me where I read it, because I've been trying to get into reading more design-based books, and it's awesome. And I've tried to look and I can't see where I read it. So I'm so sorry for not being able to attribute the person who actually said this. But basically the message was, once you've mastered something, move on. Start from scratch. So if you've got really, really good at guitar, for example, just put it down and learn the bass. Your skills that you already know from guitar can probably influence or translate to the bass, but in effect, it's a brand new thing that you've never done before. And maybe learning the bass can make you better at going back and playing the guitar. And this is true with design as well. I mean, if you're a really good typographer or hand letterist, you've spent years perfecting and honing your craft, leave it. I'm not saying forget it exists, just stop doing it and start from scratch in trying to be an illustrator, for example. And it doesn't mean you've lost those skills that you've honed over time, but it just means that you're opening yourself up to something completely new. I'm not saying neglect that old skill set, but learn something new. You know you can do that. You know that you're great at that thing. So, but don't let it restrict you. Maybe you can be great at something else. So keep that mind open and again, keep learning. Don't get comfortable. And the final point, and albeit the most important, is know your design principles. I probably need to do a separate video, but there's plenty of resources online that you can look at or read that explains what these principles are. So knowing these principles means that you can tell what makes something good, and if something is not quite right, you'll be able to read it enough and know enough visually to be able to say, if you did that or if I did that, that would improve it. So sometimes we can look at something and we know something's not quite right with it, but if we don't have that practice of knowing our design principles and putting them into practice through our own designs, then we're not going to know what we need to do to improve it. So if we look at someone like Picasso, you know, most people know him for his cubism work, but really he knew the basics and the fundamentals of fine art before he broke those rules and became a more abstract painter. So know your principles, know about alignment and balance and negative and positive space and all that good stuff, and put it into practice. Make sure you're always referring back and saying, okay, it doesn't quite feel balanced. It's because maybe that weight is too much on the left side. I need to, equal the weight on the right side, or whatever it is. But it will improve your design leaps and bounds if you know your principles. Rightio, that's about all I have time for, guys. I've got a kitty cat on my lap who's fast asleep. Got one looking at me, giving me the evil eye over there. So I'm going to love and leave you. Thank you again for all the recent subscribers, all the comments and love that you send me. It's awesome. Remember, I've got my new Twitter account, so follow me on there. It's empty. It's a barren space. I plan to use it sometime in the future. So again, if you've enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate it if you could drop a like, and I will see you guys very soon.